The world believed Prince Harry would defend Meghan Markle at any cost. He gave up titles, home, even family loyalty. But now, everything has shifted. Something is stirring inside the royal circle, and this time, the storm comes from Harry himself. It began with one email, one line, one small slip buried inside a formal note that would quietly shape the path of a marriage, a family, and a prince's life. At first glance, the email seemed routine, almost administrative. Polite, professional, protective. Nothing to alarm anyone. And yet, inside its lines, there was a tension that could not be ignored. One sentence leapt off the page. "I can't begin to tell you what it will say about the institution if this isn't resolved before the baby's arrival and wedding." At first glance, it seemed responsible, perhaps even caring. But the palace noticed it immediately. February 2018. No pregnancy had been announced. No rumors existed. No hint of a bump. No whispers of expectation. And yet, Harry wrote as if the world depended on it. The urgency was unmistakable. Every word, every punctuation, carried weight. It didn't read like hope. It read like a man trying to prevent a crisis before the world could see it. A man convinced that something crucial was at stake, even if no one else could confirm it. Harry believed what he had been told. He trusted her. Deeply. Blindly. Fiercely. And it was that trust, more than anything, that began to shape the choices that followed. The palace staff noticed the tension immediately. Meetings became longer, schedules tighter, conversations heavier. The calm, methodical rhythm of royal life was replaced with a pulse of urgency no one could ignore. Every decision, every gesture, was suddenly weighed against that line in the email. The engagement moved at unprecedented speed. Harry and Meghan had known each other barely a year, yet suddenly, every detail of a royal wedding, timelines, protocols, approvals, was compressed into a whirlwind. The phrase, "before the baby arrives," became the invisible engine driving the entire process. Meghan appeared calm, polished, radiant. Harry was tense, emotional, racing against a clock no one else could see. The world saw smiles, photos, a fairy tale unfolding. Behind the scenes, the palace staff whispered. Senior aides exchanged glances. Even the Queen, measured and patient, asked for clarification more than once. Every discussion, every planning session carried the weight of that single line. Decisions that normally required months were executed in weeks. Protocols were bent, schedules rewritten. The wedding moved forward at a speed no one had anticipated, propelled by urgency that could not be explained. And the urgency was real, at least to Harry. Every phone call, every meeting, every private conversation carried the tension of someone trying to manage a crisis. Not a public crisis, but a private one, a truth that only he believed existed. By March 2018, the dynamic began to shift. The frantic pace slowed. Conversations became quieter. The tension, once palpable, disappeared almost overnight. It was as if the storm that had gripped the palace had passed, leaving only echoes in its wake. The whispers grew. Something had changed. Meghan had allegedly told Harry she had lost the baby. A personal heartbreak hidden from the world. The urgency that had driven every decision, every conversation, had evaporated. And yet, the timelines no longer made sense. If a pregnancy had existed in late 2017, the due date would have been far earlier than the birth of Archie in May 2019. Questions emerged. Staff noticed the discrepancy. The Queen noticed. The palace realized that what had driven Harry to act, what had pushed him into a whirlwind of decision-making, may never have been rooted in fact, but in belief. And belief can be powerful. It can move mountains, bend schedules, and reshape priorities. It can transform a prince into a man racing against invisible clocks. Harry's belief in what he thought was true changed everything: his choices, his marriage, and ultimately his life outside the palace. Meghan's behavior added complexity. Staff observed a subtle pattern. 3 distinct ways of moving through situations. First, the victim. She could soften her voice, widen her eyes, evoke sympathy. Every tear, Every gesture drew Harry closer, compelling his loyalty. Second, the partner. When she wanted alignment, she presented unity. Every challenge, every disagreement became us versus them. Harry followed naturally. And third, the star. Confidence, charm, presence. Cameras, conversations, attention. She wielded it like a tool, carving a space in the royal narrative that no newcomer had managed. Harry responded to these rhythms. When she wept, he defended. When she shone, he dimmed. Every choice he made, every action he took, was influenced, shaped by emotion. What appeared to outsiders as instinct or impulsivity was in fact a cascade of reaction, fueled by hope, love, and urgency. By May 2018, the wedding was unstoppable. The Queen's approval was secured, the chapel ready, the cameras aligned. The public saw perfection: flowers, horses, tiaras, smiles. The palace saw momentum, urgency, and quiet calculation. A crisis that had driven every decision was gone, leaving only its imprint. Harry believed he had protected his family, acted on love, and done the right thing. But the foundation of those choices was already shifting. The urgency that had propelled him was no longer needed. The machinery had done its work, and the trap had quietly closed. The early pregnancy, real or imagined, became the lens through which every action was taken. Every decision, every accelerated timeline, every emotional reaction can be traced to that single belief. And when the crisis disappeared, Harry was left with the consequences of choices made under the weight of hope. The tragedy was subtle. It was not deceit alone. It was self-deception. Believing in a future, trusting in love, acting on hope instead of certainty. Harry had been motivated by what he wanted to be true, and in that belief, the path of his life was quietly, irrevocably altered. The cameras still flash. Meghan still smiles. The brand continues, polished and glowing. But Harry walks beside her quietly, not as a prince with agency, but as a man shaped by one sentence, one email, one moment that revealed more than he could ever admit. Cracks in a marriage do not begin with scandals or headlines. They begin with belief, with urgency, with hope that drives action and shapes reality. For Harry, that moment came long before Archie was born, long before the wedding, long before the public ever knew the story existed. And the world is still watching. Every smile, every appearance, every interview is filtered through the shadow of that original urgency. The email wasn't just evidence. It was a signal, a prophecy. The fairy tale has ended, though the images remain. The illusion is cracking. And the question lingers. When Harry finally stops running, when the weight of belief meets reality, what will he do next? The answer is unknown. The consequences are still unfolding. And the world waits to see how a man shaped by hope, urgency, and trust will finally reclaim the life that one email quietly began to dictate. If you've followed every twist, every nuance, every hidden moment, comment below with your thoughts. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Because in the world of royalty, every word, every gesture, every silent message can change everything.